Hey, it's Molly. Welcome back to my YouTube channel as we're going to discuss an important configuration that's forming throughout September 2024. It's where the three outer planets are creating a minor grand trine. We're going to walk through these energies and discuss them, and then I want to put this into a bigger understanding for you. So let's begin by looking at how Uranus at 27 degrees of Taurus is retrograde, creating a sextile to Neptune at 28 degrees of Pisces retrograde. Also sextiling Pluto back at 29 degrees of Capricorn retrograde. So all three outer planets are retrograde, and now they are within 1 degree apart. Although in the case of Uranus and Pluto, they are 2 degrees apart. So not an exact trine, but still important. And what you want to do is locate each of these three transiting planets in your chart by house location, and understand how three areas of your life are being deeply transformed, permanently changed, and yet this is also helping you move forward on your path. Now let's explain why. So this Uranus at 27 degrees of Taurus is the furthest it's been in the sign of Taurus, and is the energy of liberation, rebellion, awakenings, quick, fast-moving life changes. Wherever this Uranus is moving through your chart by house placement is where you are experiencing drastic changes that can both catch you off guard and set you free from a previous place of stability or understanding what you needed in your life. Uranus is shaking up Taurus, which does not want change, which will resist change. But Uranus is saying it's time. It's time to set yourself free from what you have outgrown, to see the bigger picture, and to become more aware of how you can work with your resources, your talents, your everyday, typical life creature comforts, and allow these parts of you and your experience to be elevated. But Uranus can be quite disruptive. So these aren't smooth, easy changes at first. They can be shocking and blindsiding. They can be things you don't want to change, but the cosmos is requiring it to happen. So that's just a basic summary of Uranus and Taurus. Then we move to Neptune in Pisces near the very, very end of the zodiac wheel. And this is a place of deep surrender, allowing, releasing. Neptune is connected to the frequency of your higher self, which understands that everything is meant to change, and how can you release and let go in order to go higher. Neptune is requiring us to set ourselves free from our egoic self, from our physical world, from what we thought we needed in this life. Neptune is asking us here in the very late degrees of Pisces to be okay with the unknown, to swim in the void, to connect to the higher spiritual principles of compassion, love, faith, trust for what you cannot see, for what you don't know, and allow that to be a beautiful resting place, as if you're being cradled by your soul, as if there's a sense of, I can trust this because I know I'm safe. I'm able to move through these openings and voids. I can keep going forward even without seeing what's on the other side. And so this Neptune in Pisces can bring up where we are afraid to let go, what we are grasping onto, what we want to keep in place or not allow to transition or change. But when you go higher into what this Neptune in Pisces is teaching us, especially since 2011, when Neptune first entered Pisces, look at how far you've come in allowing yourself to evolve beyond what you've known before and to be removing parts of yourself that no longer serve you. Then we move to this Pluto back at 29 degrees of Capricorn, the final few months in Capricorn before Pluto moves on and will stay in Aquarius. But this brief jaunt back into Capricorn is highlighting how much you have powerfully transformed what you've had to face, what has stirred up deep fears within you, especially since Pluto first entered Capricorn 2008, 2009. This is the cherry on top of the sundae, if you will, of this transformation. This is bringing you into deeper connection with what you've been acknowledging and seeing in yourself that you were afraid to accept responsibility for or afraid to face in the Capricorn areas of your chart. And Pluto is going to offer you a graduation of sorts, a certificate of mastery for what you have had to deal with that maybe you were too emotionally attached to or connected with. It felt too big, too scary, and yet you couldn't escape it. And so this Pluto is highlighting where you have stepped into a new understanding of your soul purpose, soul mission, what you're good at in this lifetime, and how to feel empowered by that level of self-recognition. So each of these three outer planets is now in a harmonious minor grand trine, with the apex being this Neptune in Pisces. And it's the center point here that is smoothing the rough edges of the earth signs. It is the focal point here of the energy that basically says this is the way to go. You're moving forward because of what you have surrendered, what you are understanding through the whispers and softer messages from your soul, that there's a chapter in your soul's experience that's ending. It's that big. It's connected to very deep soul experiences that you've had to face and approach differently. You've had to change up the game for yourself. You've had to acknowledge that the deeper you go into facing these fears and allowing yourself to be a new self-loving version of who you are in this lifetime is also giving you this momentum that propels you into greater completions. And so, yes, the theme here is more about endings at a soul level, because it's the three outer planets and because they're at these late degrees of the earth, 2 earth signs and 1 water sign. Energy is leaving the planet now. Old, outdated energies are no longer going to sustain themselves in the new earth energies we're moving into, especially the second half of this decade. So this apex here on Neptune and Pisces is showing you that this is part of your spiritual path. This is what your soul signed up for in this lifetime. And the North Node is going to move to this point in Pisces in January 2025, further accentuating what you are surrendering and no longer connecting with. And when the North Node gets to these late degrees of Pisces, again, January 2025, there's going to be the new directions opening into your higher spiritual self. I feel this as the light body expanding. I feel this as downloads of spiritual truths related to the law of oneness, the law of divine oneness, new cohesive energies that remind us how much we are connected, even as we participate in this human game of individuality and personal identities. There is a remembrance here of what we are co-creating on the planet together that is part of our spiritual growth trajectory. Now, the date of this chart, by the way, is September 21st, 2024. And the reason why I selected September 21st, 2024 is because perhaps you'll notice over here, the sun in Virgo at 28 degrees is opposing this Neptune and is creating a kite configuration with the 3 outer planets that also brings our attention to this Neptune in Pisces, where humanity is moving into new frequencies as the old ones dissolve. As the old energetic imprints on this planet are meant to wash away and be cleared, be dismantled, be disrupted, to face some really important truths about the world we've created, and to help us focus on the path ahead into what we can create next. But that sun in Virgo brings our attention to what is in the present moment. And so this particular configuration, again, it's occurring throughout September. And in September 2024, we also have the Pisces lunar eclipse at 26 degrees of Pisces, which is conjunct this Neptune. This particular chart is right before the Libra equinox on September 22nd. And then we'll have our next solar eclipse, a Libra solar eclipse, October 2nd. So I just want to note that whatever is transpiring during eclipse season in September 2024, it's meant to point us in this direction where the outer planets are saying this is a big, monumental transformation on the planet and in humanity. And because these outer planets move so slowly, we're probably not going to see it right away, but we're going to sense it. Sense the ongoing ebb and wave of changes. And something else I want to point out is that with this Uranus at 27 Taurus is a Pleiadean degree point, where now this Uranus is shaking up the frequencies that we're receiving from the Pleiadians, and that is also known as the Seven Sisters, bringing in immediate, fast-moving connections, communications, and new levels of knowingness that affect how we stabilize ourselves on the planet and how we're integrating these higher frequencies and higher spiritual gifts into our core self, our self-worth, our self-value, that you are here to be a more elevated spiritual being who can trust the endings, the closures, what's leaving, because you've obtained new levels of personal responsibility and mastery in this lifetime. So now what I'd like to do is actually venture back in time to a pivotal few years when these energies were cracking us open. And it's important because Uranus is now within that 2 degrees of Pluto. For the first time since we had 7 squares between Uranus and Pluto back in 2012 to 2015. So now we're going to get into our time traveling machine and go back to June 2012. So this next chart that you're looking at is for June 24th, 2012. But it's important to note that this first square between Uranus and Pluto was building throughout 2011. So keep that in mind, that what we're talking about here are these slow moving but deep grinding, intense world changes that unfold across years of time. But each time the outer planets interact signifies a pivotal energy point. So back in June 2024, Uranus was at 8 degrees of Aries, 23 minutes. Pluto was at 8 degrees of Capricorn, 23 minutes retrograde. And this was the first of 7 squares between Uranus and Pluto. So if you think back between 2012 and 2015, this was a time of deep awakenings were required around your truer purpose on the planet. And so let me say that if you had planets or points in the cardinal signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, this was very important in helping you get on a truer path connected to who you really are in this lifetime. And so as Uranus moved through Aries, late 2010 to 2018, the planet of awakenings and disruption was asking you to get very real with yourself. Understand that this was a time of new beginnings, that at a soul level you contracted to begin. You said, I'm going to take this on when I feel that initiation energy come through. And it was probably pushing you away from a certain career or life direction, anything that the Capricorn energies would have been focused on, disciplined towards, goals, a life path. And this first square was an initiation square to open your eyes to what hasn't been truly you, to perhaps the traditional path or programming that you thought you had to step into. Perhaps it came from your family or your lineage. Your father expected certain things of you. Your mother said, this is how it's best to make a living. This could be what you expected of yourself. I need to do this in order to have a good standing, to be perhaps, financially healthy, to follow this known trajectory. And 2012 to 2015 would have been requiring you to deeply look at those assumptions and be honest about the fact that isn't truly me. So who am I? And there could have been many disruptions in your life that required you to get on a path that would ultimately connect you with more of your true power, true gifts that you've accumulated throughout multiple lifetimes, and help you break free of what you don't want, what is no longer your authentic truth. These would have been awakenings you couldn't ignore. And it was directing you to a new place in the world to be in your power and share your gifts, opening you up to more of your true self. I feel that this Uranus was also starting to deeply require us to step into our spiritual powers, and that many people could have felt that's when their third eye started opening, or Uranus in Aries was jolting you from a deep sleep into more of what you're capable of. Maybe your claircognizance started, your clairvoyance. You were starting to interact with people and feeling yourself in a deep frequency shift that you couldn't understand or make sense of, and it didn't fit into the world you had built or the world you had known. Now, this ongoing square between Pluto and Uranus happened 7 times from 2012 to 2015 between 7 degrees and 15 degrees. And that's because Uranus retrograded back to 6 degrees, 56 minutes of Aries. Pluto also retrograded back. So you could even say 6 degrees Capricorn to 15 degrees of Capricorn is where Pluto was deeply working with you. And then Uranus was 6 degrees Aries to 15 degrees of Aries, still in this square with Pluto. Again, 7 times. I even think back to the world of astrology back then. And astrology, ruled by Uranus, was certainly not as mainstream or big as it is now, but astrology was breaking through to the traditional energies of the world, like the traditional known understandings of what we could apply and use in our lives. So it was certainly a time of astrology breaking through. Now, this ongoing square that happened 7 times, again, was deeply working with planets or points in the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. But it was also beneficial to planets or points in fire and air signs. So the fire signs and air signs that Uranus was working with in a more beneficial way would have been Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. And then this Pluto in Capricorn was working powerfully to transform energies in earth and water signs. So that would have been not only Capricorn, but Pisces, Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, and Scorpio. So this is important to put into the bigger picture story of what we're moving through, is that Uranus in Aries was requiring you to deeply change your trajectory, your path, your self-identity, your self-concept, and what you believed you were capable of. That would have been such a challenge to Pluto, that was also deeply understanding and requiring you to face fears about not being part of a tradition, to perhaps follow an unknown path. For example, you were no longer part of a company, you went off to be a consultant or do something on your own. You were doing what was expected of you and you said, no more, I can't do that. It's not true for me. I can't handle it 1 more minute or else I'm going to burn the place down in Aries. So there can be any number of stories here. But this is an important thing to understand, is that 2012 to 2015 was deeply affecting the collective and how we were newly integrating what we wanted of ourselves and basically getting into a higher trajectory around what that could look like. So now we return to September 2024 to pick up this story. So now we look at Pluto still in Capricorn, right? Where it was back in 2012 to 2015, wanting you to look at the new levels of responsibility and power you need to own your soul purpose. But more importantly, look at how far Uranus has traveled. And this Uranus in Taurus is bringing you into greater awareness around how you have further developed your spiritual senses, your path, your energies, in your spiritual gifts. That Pleiadean stream of consciousness is coming through with higher awareness around what you can create and offer on the planet, that also brings in more harmony, more beauty, more peace. Those are all values of Taurus. How can I, as this new advanced, or maybe not new, but more evolved advanced version of myself, offer more gifts? How am I powerfully expanding my own physical presence and energy field in the collective? How has my personal energy field drastically changed since 2012, 2015, which could feel like 3 lifetimes ago? And now there's the opportunity to expand into or receive these strengthened Pleiadean gifts that can see the bigger picture of humanity and what we intentionally choose, where we intentionally want to go, that is more loving, more compassionate, more inclusive. And as we have these advanced connections, we are navigating old structures with new self-awareness, and we have more tools to work with. Because you've been required to face fears around your abilities in the world, to look at, do I feel good enough, capable? Am I worthy of higher levels of success, of new goals in my life, of what I want to move into that is actually a better fit for my energy, especially as I unload karma, soul contracts, emotional energy, inner child wounding, anything related to mother-father wounding, shadow work. We've been required to get into the nitty-gritty of our spiritual energy signature, to elevate it, transmute it, and dissolve away so that we can be lighter and freer. That's why I feel this Neptune in Pisces is related to the light body, where as we release karma and dense emotions and intense parts of our soul experiences, they just dissolve and end, and they're complete, and supports us with a new empowered outlook and a new sense of what you're truly good at, talents and gifts. And in this minor grand trine, this Uranus is the catalyst. And that's because Neptune and Pluto have been in an ongoing sextile for over a century. They have a gravitational pull towards each other, so they're always close by. They do venture perhaps 5-6 degrees apart, but then they always come back together. And they'll continue this same pattern as both moves into new signs, because this Pluto will enter Aquarius again in late 2024, and then Neptune will begin to enter Aries in 2025. So they remain in that gravitational relationship. And because they're already in communication and conversation, then here enters the chat is Uranus, which is zingy, spicy, and a catalyst of the changes that you're ready for, that we are ready for. But this is more the individual, especially in Taurus, your individual path that you've been working on privately, internally. You've been tested. You've been put through the ringer. You've had to understand within your own beingness what you no longer want, what you no longer need, what no longer is connected to a rising sense of self-worth and life purpose. And because they're not in an exact trine, but again, they're 2 degrees apart here, Uranus and Pluto. This is the closest they've been since 2015, 2016, because in 2016, even 2017, they were still within a few degrees of each other. They're setting something up here. It's similar to, teeing up, preparing for you to be ready for the next stage as they will make some very fast-moving dynamic trines in the air signs. Now, I have a separate video for you already here on YouTube about Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus and Gemini trining. And it also pulls in this Neptune, which will be in Aries. But I feel like this energy in September is wanting us to ground in and physically integrate here how much our physical worlds have changed at a personal level, how much you have moved through, how much you have been required to move through. And there's some type of universal recognition. Like, I feel there's something even from the higher self that is that beautiful pat on the back, that beautiful level of recognition of look how far you've come. Look how much you have changed in yourself since Uranus went into Aries. But look at how much you were required to shift 2012 to 2015 that was uncomfortable. It was uncertain. It was scary. You were taking a risk on a new part of yourself. And there's something about acknowledging how far you've come. And even rewards. Uranus and Taurus can open up these rewards. Same with the Capricorn energy. Career advancements, financial rewards, new understandings of who you are, what you're capable in the world, what you can offer, while continuing to trust that how far you've come has been worth it. And even as you continue to move forward, you're traveling with the power of the universe. You're traveling with much bigger forces that are directing you forward. So this would be a month, September 2024, to be aware of what's showing up for you in these 3 houses in your chart as these 3 outer planets connect. There's harmony here. There's flow and openings. There's things coming together with ease and grace. There could be a sense of I did it. I ended that. I completed it. I graduated. And you feel it. And it sets you free to be in more of your power and to see that the transformation has been worth it. And again, because these outer planets move so slowly, this energy moves into 2025 and 2026, when then they enter those dynamic air signs and fire signs, and things are ramped up and there's even greater acceleration. But there is a lovely, harmonious, peaceful message here about how far you've come. And keep in mind, in human terms, we're like, oh my gosh, 2012, that's 12 years ago. But to these planets, that's just a blip. A second of a second. Like, that's nothing. 12 years is nothing. So our human perception is very different than the energetic perception. But there's also much here to see in what has opened up for you because of the changes you've been required to make. I mean, let's be real. Pluto doesn't make it easy. Pluto destroys. Pluto removes. Pluto requires us to permanently let go of one version. And I feel like this is affirmation and confirmation from the universe that it was worth it. And it's moving you forward in ways you never could have perceived or known. It's a really beautiful energy. If you have planets or points in the earth signs, in late degrees of the earth signs, you're going to feel this more personally. If you have planets or points in the late degrees of the water signs, you're also going to feel this more personally. But it's signaling that we're moving forward. The earth is deeply changing and has been permanently changed with the new frequencies. And I feel that this also shows us that the planet is receiving higher downloads from the Pleiadians, which is, of course, light years away and way outside of our time-space continuum. And I also feel like maybe this explains why time seems like it's sped up. Actually, there's scientific evidence that every time there's an earthquake, the planet starts to move faster. After earthquakes or volcanic eruptions, the globe spins faster. And it's mere seconds, like it's like what, 0.02 or something seconds. So I don't know that offhand, but I remember reading that every time there's a disruption on Earth, it affects how fast the planet spins. So all in all, this minor grand trine between the three outer planets of our solar system are in a harmonious connection here that want to acknowledge where we've had to take a risk and face fears and give up a sense of control, because in fact that was the only way forward, and that the ascension is real, the spiritual growth is real, and that we are collectively advancing during a very key time in humanity's evolution. So again, to make it more personal for you, you'd look at where you have 29 degrees of Capricorn, 28 degrees of Pisces, and 27 degrees of Taurus in your chart, as these are the three houses that are connecting with a minor grand trine of ease, joy, and beneficial developments. Please check out my playlist that describes more of the incoming powerful energies that we're moving into in 2025 and 2026. I will put it below this video as well. And I hope that helps you see the bigger picture of these very dynamic times we're living in. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing. Thanks for your likes, your comments, and for sharing this video. I'll be back soon.